My son sold his dead mother's wedding necklace for vacation money, $3,200 to take his fiancée to Hawaii, while Kara's been in the ground less than a year. I found the pawn slip in his jacket. Anderson's Jewelry, the same shop where I bought that necklace in 1986. James thought I'd never find out. He thought I'd just accept it like I've accepted all his other selfishness. She would have wanted us to be happy, he said when I confronted him. But James made one crucial mistake. He didn't know that Edward Anderson and I have been best friends for 38 years. Before I tell you how this ends, let me know where you're from. Some lessons cost everything. My name is Marcus Williams, 65 years old. And now let me tell you about that necklace. I bought it for Kara's 22nd birthday in 1986. 3 months of overtime shifts at the accounting firm. Every extra dollar went into that little velvet box. Double shifts on weekends. Skip lunch, save $5. Walk to work, save gas money. For 93 days I counted every penny. The sapphire matched her eyes perfectly. Deep blue like ocean water on sunny days. The jeweler said it was flawless. No inclusions, no color variations. Pure, perfect blue that caught light from every angle. When I gave it to her, she cried. Not sad tears, joy tears. Pure joy flowing down her cheeks like she'd never received anything so beautiful in her entire life. Marcus, this is too much, she whispered. Nothing's too much for you. She wore it on our wedding day 6 months later, every anniversary after that, every Christmas morning when we opened presents together, every time she wanted to feel beautiful. For 38 years, that necklace never left her jewelry box except for special moments. Kara would touch it when she was nervous before job interviews. Hold it when she missed her mother after the funeral. Wear it when she needed courage for difficult conversations. The necklace was her strength, her reminder that she was loved completely. She made me promise something that last day. Kara saw things I didn't want to see, like how James changed after he met Brittany 2 years ago, how his visits became shorter and less frequent, how his phone calls turned into quick text messages, how "I love you too, Dad" became K or thumbs up emojis. He's not ready for real responsibility, Kara whispered that final week in the hospital, not emotionally ready for marriage or family. I told her she was worrying too much. James was just busy with work and wedding planning. Young people showed love differently now. Modern relationships were complicated. Technology changed communication patterns. All the excuses you tell yourself when you don't want to face hard truths about your children. But Kara knew. She always knew people's true character. "That girl," she said about Brittany during one of our last conversations. "She sees dollar signs, not family values." Kara was right about everything. She saw James's growing selfishness before I admitted it existed. She saw Brittany's materialistic influence before I called it modern relationship dynamics. She saw our family breaking apart while I still believed in happy endings and generational healing. For 45 years, Kara's instincts about people never failed her. Not once. Teachers who'd help or hurt James. Neighbors who'd become friends or problems. Co-workers who'd support or undermine me. I should have seen the warning signs. After the funeral, I threw myself into supporting James financially and emotionally. College loans I co-signed without reading the fine print. Credit cards with my backup guarantee in case of emergencies. His first apartment deposit when his credit wasn't established. Car repairs when money was tight. Insurance payments when he was between jobs. Emergency medical bills that never seemed quite legitimate, but I paid anyway. "Dad, you don't have to do this," he'd say while accepting every check. But I did have to. Kara was gone. James was all I had left of our family. Supporting him felt like honoring her memory and keeping our family connected through love and generosity. I added his name to my checking account for emergencies, put him on the house deed for inheritance planning purposes, signed him onto my investment accounts for tax benefits and estate management. Every financial advisor said the same thing: diversify ownership to protect assets from taxes and probate complications. What they didn't explain was how that trust could be weaponized against you by ungrateful children who saw generosity as entitlement. I should have listened to her concerns about Brittany. The legal paperwork seemed so reasonable at the time. My lawyer, Tom Peterson, explained everything carefully over coffee in his downtown office. Joint bank accounts would give James access if I had a medical emergency or cognitive decline. The house transfer would avoid probate complications and inheritance taxes. Investment account sharing would provide tax advantages and estate planning benefits. Smart planning, Marcus, Tom said while organizing the documents. You're protecting James's future and simplifying your estate management. Every document was notarized properly by Tom's secretary, filed correctly with the county courthouse, completely legal and binding under state inheritance laws. I signed papers that made James equal owner of nearly everything I'd spent 40 years building through careful saving and conservative investing. The insurance forms were Tom's suggestion too. Life insurance beneficiary updates to reflect current circumstances. Health insurance coverage extensions for family members. Disability protection policies in case of workplace accidents. Emergency contact authorizations for medical decisions. James signed everything without reading a single paragraph. Just like I'd taught him to trust family documents and legal advice. These protect you if something happens to me, I explained while he signed page after page. James signed his name 37 times that afternoon. Never asked a single question about terms or conditions. Never read a single line of legal text. Just trusted his old man to handle the boring bureaucratic details. Those forms weren't really about insurance. Edward Anderson and I met in high school shop class during autumn 1967. 58 years of friendship through marriage, divorce, career changes, health scares, and family crises. He was my best man when Kara and I married in 1988. I was his when he married Susan, 3 years later. When Kara died, Edward closed his jewelry shop for the entire funeral day. Sat with me through the service, the burial, and the reception afterward. Never left my side during the hardest day of my life. Helped me greet guests when I couldn't form complete sentences. Edward built Anderson's jewelry from absolutely nothing. Started in his garage during weekends, fixing broken watches and resizing rings for neighbors. Gradually built a customer base through honest work and fair prices. Now he owns the most respected jewelry store in 3 counties, but success never changed his fundamental character. Edward still fixes watches by hand using tools from the 1970s. Still remembers every customer's story and special occasions. Still calls regular customers by their first names and asks about their families. That necklace is special, he told me when I bought it in 1986. I'll remember this piece forever, Marcus. Edward kept his word. For 38 years he'd ask about Kara and that necklace during every conversation. Every Christmas card included a note about Kara's beautiful sapphire. Every chance encounter at the grocery store or community events. Edward always said he'd know Kara's necklace anywhere. My accounting background taught me to document everything meticulously. Receipts, warranties, appraisals, photographs of important purchases. Every major financial decision had backup documentation stored in organized files. Every legal agreement had copies in multiple locations. The insurance forms James signed were actually more comprehensive than routine coverage updates. Power of attorney agreements for emergency financial management, debt acknowledgement letters for shared account responsibilities, asset protection clauses for irresponsible financial behavior, emergency authorization for account freezing and credit protection. I'd learned these strategies from 40 years of managing estate planning for wealthy clients. How to protect accumulated assets from bad decisions by heirs. How to maintain legal control while appearing to share ownership generously. How to prepare for worst-case scenarios without seeming suspicious or controlling. The documents looked completely routine to James. Standard legal language about beneficiaries and coverage limits. Boilerplate terms and conditions that most people sign without reading carefully. But buried in the fine print were clauses that could reverse every ownership transfer if specific conditions were met. Conditions like theft of family property, or breach of fiduciary duty regarding shared assets, or violation of family trust agreements regarding respect and responsibility. I hoped I'd never need those legal protections. I prayed James would prove Kara's concerns wrong about his character development. I wanted to believe my son was better than his worst impulses and Brittany's influence. But I'd learned to prepare for disappointment. Those forms weren't really about insurance. The red flag started approximately 6 months after Kara's funeral. Credit card statements showed expensive restaurants I didn't remember visiting with James. Hotel charges in cities I'd never seen or traveled to recently. Designer clothing purchases that didn't match my wardrobe or shopping habits. I called the credit card company customer service line. These charges don't look right to me. Mr. Williams, these are all authorized by the secondary cardholder on your account. James, using our joint credit line like his personal expense account for dates and entertainment with Brittany. I found their Hawaii booking confirmation in his email account when he asked me to help with computer problems. 7 days at a luxury beachfront resort. $2,000 spa packages for couples treatments. Private beach cabanas with champagne service. Wine tasting tours and helicopter excursions. The total vacation cost would have paid Kara's medical bills for 3 months of treatments. But the worst discovery came 2 weeks later. Hidden in James's car glove compartment was a receipt from Anderson's jewelry, dated 3 weeks earlier. $3,200 paid in cash. For one sapphire necklace, vintage 1986, excellent condition. My hands started shaking holding that receipt. Kara's necklace, the symbol of our love and commitment. The promise I'd made on her deathbed about family legacy, sold like unwanted junk at a pawn shop for vacation spending money. Then I found their Hawaii booking confirmation. The disrespect started small with things I told myself didn't really matter. James arriving 30 minutes late to family dinners without calling or apologizing, checking his phone constantly during conversations about Kara's memory, forgetting important dates like our wedding anniversary or her birthday celebrations. Sorry, Dad. Work's been incredibly crazy lately. Always work being crazy. Never I forgot because I don't prioritize family anymore or I don't care about these traditions. Just work being conveniently overwhelming while he posted vacation photos and restaurant visits on social media. Brittany made everything significantly worse. She'd roll her eyes visibly when I shared stories about Kara's life and personality, make jokes about old people and their repetitive memories, talk through family traditions like they were boring obligations preventing more interesting activities. Marcus tells the same stories every single time, she'd whisper to James during family gatherings. Not quietly enough. I heard everything clearly. James would just nod and quickly change the subject to something Brittany found more engaging. Never defended his mother's memory or asked Brittany to show basic respect for family stories. He'd rather keep his fiancée entertained than honor his family's history and values. Other relatives started noticing the changes too. My sister Carol pulled me aside privately at Christmas dinner. James seems different lately, she said carefully, more distant from family. But Brittany changed everything. The financial demands escalated rapidly from small requests to major impositions. What started as $20 loans for gas became $100 requests for restaurant dates. Car payment assistance became apartment deposit demands. Emergency medical bills became vacation funding requirements. Dad, could you help us out until my next paycheck arrives? Always us now. Never just James needing individual assistance. Brittany had become an automatic part of every financial conversation and decision. Her needs were instantly his needs. Her wants became his declared emergencies requiring immediate family support. I started asking completely reasonable questions about these requests. What's this money actually for specifically? When can you realistically pay it back? Why is this situation an emergency requiring family intervention? James would get defensive and angry quickly, like I was being unreasonable for wanting basic details about my own money and retirement savings. You always made me feel guilty about asking for help, he'd complain. That wasn't true at all. I'd never made James feel guilty about legitimate needs or genuine emergencies, but I'd never taught him the crucial difference between needs and wants, between emergency assistance and lifestyle subsidies for choices beyond his income level. Brittany actively encouraged his sense of entitlement to my resources. Your dad has plenty of money, she'd say confidently. He should want to help you succeed in life. Success apparently meant funding their restaurant dates and weekend trips without questions. James said something that reminded me of Kara's warning. The contempt became publicly visible and embarrassing. James would dismiss my opinions in front of friends and neighbors, mock my old-fashioned values at family gatherings and community events, treat my 40 years of life experience like irrelevant ancient history from a bygone era. Dad doesn't understand how relationships work nowadays, he'd announce at dinner parties with other couples, or Dad's still stuck in the 1980s, when I suggested saving money before making major purchases or taking expensive vacations. Brittany was significantly worse than James. Her Instagram posts regularly mocked boomer mentality and outdated family expectations. She'd take photos of our family dinners with captions like mandatory old people time and surviving another lecture about the good old days. James thought her posts were hilarious. He'd like every single one. Comment with laughing emojis and share her content with his friends like I was some embarrassing relic from another century. My values weren't outdated or irrelevant. Marriage commitment wasn't old-fashioned thinking. Respecting your parents wasn't a boomer concept that modern generations had outgrown. These were basic human decency principles that transcended generational differences. But James preferred Brittany's modern approach to family relationships, where family obligations were completely negotiable, where respect was conditional on entertainment value, where history started fresh with each new relationship. I realized this wasn't temporary stress but permanent character change. Then James crossed the final sacred boundary regarding Kara's memory. He started making casual jokes about Kara's hoarding of sentimental items and photographs, complaining about her personal belongings, cluttering the house unnecessarily, suggesting I donate her clothes and jewelry to charity to make room for Brittany's expanding wardrobe. Mom kept every birthday card for 40 years, he'd say while laughing. Who actually does that? Kara, apparently. Kara, who valued handwritten memories over material possessions, who treasured notes from people she loved deeply, who believed family history mattered more than closet space or modern minimalism. James began using grief as his convenient excuse for increasingly selfish behavior patterns. Mom's death really changed my perspective, he'd explain when people questioned his attitude shifts. I realized life's too short to worry about what other people think. What he actually meant was life's too short to consider anyone else's feelings or needs. Too short to honor established family traditions. Too short to show basic respect for the woman who'd given him everything. Brittany actively encouraged this self-centered interpretation of grief processing. You can't live in the past forever, she'd tell him confidently. Your mom would want you to be happy and move forward. Kara would have wanted James to be decent, respectful, and grateful. She would have wanted him to honor her memory by becoming a better man. But Christmas dinner was when he went too far. I planned my 65th birthday celebration carefully and thoughtfully. Kara would have wanted a meaningful family gathering with her favorite recipes and traditions. Her best china displayed on the dining room table. The room decorated exactly how she'd arranged it for every special occasion during our marriage. James and Brittany arrived 1 hour late without any apology or reasonable explanation. No phone call warning about delays, just waltzed in casually like punctuality was optional for family events honoring deceased relatives. Brittany immediately complained about the overly formal atmosphere and traditional setup. Why can't we just order pizza like normal people do? Because this wasn't normal people celebrating routine events. This was family honoring tradition. This was respecting the woman who'd made every birthday special for 38 years of marriage. I'd invited Kara's sister Carol, my brother Paul, and 3 couples from our neighborhood. People who remembered Kara fondly. People who understood what family commitment meant. People who still believed celebrations required genuine effort and thoughtful planning. James spent the entire evening checking his phone constantly, texting other people, scrolling through social media while relatives shared warm memories of his mother. Brittany took selfies with the birthday cake instead of eating dinner or participating in conversations. I should have recognized the warning signs clearly. The visible impatience, the eye-rolling, the whispered conversations between James and Brittany. I had no idea what they were planning to announce. Dad, before we cut the cake, Brittany and I have really exciting news to share. James stood up suddenly with that confident smile I used to love seeing. Now it made my stomach clench with dread and anticipation. We finally booked our honeymoon, 7 days in Hawaii at a 5-star beachfront resort, private beach access, couples spa treatments, the whole romantic vacation package. The dining room went completely quiet. Kara's sister Carol looked confused about the timing. My brother Paul raised his eyebrows skeptically. The neighbors stopped eating and put down their silverware. That's wonderful news, I managed carefully. How did you afford something that expensive? Brittany giggled like a teenager. Actually giggled at a family birthday dinner. Tell them, baby. James's smile got wider and more proud. Remember Mom's old necklace, the sapphire one she never wore anymore? I sold it to help pay for our trip. The words hit me like ice-cold water. My fork dropped onto the china plate with a sharp clink. The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees instantly. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. She would have wanted us to be happy, right, Dad? Instead of letting expensive jewelry just sit in a dusty box forever? Brittany was recording everything on her phone for social media. We're going to make such beautiful memories together. Kara would be so proud of us. The room went completely silent. Nobody said anything for several long seconds. Not one person at that table defended Kara's memory or challenged James's decision. Not one family member spoke up for basic decency and respect. Not one friend questioned the ethics of this choice. Carol stared at her plate uncomfortably. Paul cleared his throat and looked away toward the window. The neighbors suddenly found their wine glasses absolutely fascinating. Everyone just sat there silently, waiting for me to react somehow, waiting for me to make this awkward situation disappear quickly. $3,200, James continued proudly. More than enough for the vacation deposit. Brittany deserves the absolute best honeymoon possible. Brittany beamed with satisfaction. We're thinking about upgrading to the presidential suite with ocean views, with my dead wife's wedding necklace funding their upgrade, with the symbol of 45 years of marriage and commitment, with the sacred promise I'd made at her deathbed about honoring family legacy. I felt my chest tighten painfully. My hands went completely cold. My vision seemed to narrow until I could only see James's proud face and Brittany's smug expression of victory. This was the crucial test moment. Would anyone stand up for what was morally right? Would anyone remember Kara's importance to this family? Would anyone show basic human decency? The silence stretched endlessly. Forks clinked against plates. Someone coughed nervously. Ice cubes shifted in water glasses. I told them to enjoy their vacation. I meant every word. Congratulations to both of you, I said slowly and clearly. You've certainly earned this celebration. My voice sounded completely calm and steady, controlled. Inside, everything was breaking apart violently, but outside I smiled like a proud father supporting his children's happiness. Hawaii sounds absolutely perfect for you two. James visibly relaxed. He'd been worried about my potential reaction to his announcement. Now he thought everything was fine between us. Crisis successfully avoided. Dad approved of the decision. Life could continue exactly as planned. Thanks for understanding, Dad. I knew you'd eventually see it my way. Brittany squeezed his hand affectionately. Your father's so supportive and modern. My parents would have completely freaked out. They should have freaked out immediately. Any decent parents would have lost their minds. Any reasonable family would have stopped this betrayal before it happened. But I wasn't going to make a dramatic scene. Not here. Not in front of these people who'd already proven they wouldn't defend what mattered most. I stood up calmly. Let me get the camera for family photos. What I really needed was 5 minutes alone to process what had just happened. 5 minutes to plan what came next. 5 minutes to honor Kara's memory properly. In Kara's bedroom, I sat on her side of the bed, looked at her photograph on the nightstand, the one where she's wearing that necklace. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I stayed in the bedroom until everyone finished dinner and left. Listened to them laugh about Hawaii vacation plans, heard them discuss restaurant recommendations and sightseeing activities, listening to car doors slam and engines start as guests departed, then complete silence throughout the house. I sat in Kara's favorite chair by the bedroom window, the same spot where she'd watched birds every morning for 20 years, where she'd read mystery novels and planned her garden seasons, where she'd worried about James and his future character development. Moonlight came through the lace curtains she'd sewn herself during our 2nd year of marriage. Everything in this room still smelled like her favorite perfume. Her jewelry box sat empty on the dresser, the little velvet impression where her necklace used to rest safely. For 45 years, Kara's instincts about people had been absolutely perfect. She'd seen through James's developing selfishness when I was still making excuses for his behavior. She'd recognized Brittany's materialistic influence when I was trying to be welcoming and accepting. She'd predicted this exact betrayal when I was still believing in family loyalty and respect. I'd failed her completely, failed to protect the symbol of our love, failed to honor her final wishes about family legacy, failed to teach James the difference between right and wrong, but I could still make this right somehow. I picked up the phone and dialed Edward's number. Edward answered on the first ring despite the late hour. Marcus, it's past midnight. James sold Kara's necklace. Long pause. I could hear Edward breathing deeply, thinking, understanding everything in those 4 simple words. "The bastard," he said quietly with controlled anger. "When did this happen?" "3 weeks ago. To you, actually. Anderson's jewelry. $3,200 cash." Another pause. Much longer this time. I could hear him moving around, probably sitting up in bed. "Marcus, I need to tell you something very important." My hands started shaking uncontrollably. "What?" "I still have it. The necklace." The words didn't make sense at first. I heard them clearly but couldn't process their meaning. "What do you mean you still have it?" I recognized that necklace the second James walked into my shop. Kara's sapphire. The one I sold you in 1986. The one she wore to every anniversary dinner for 38 years. I sat down hard in Kara's chair. "But the money came from my personal savings account. I've been waiting 3 weeks for you to call me." Edward had kept Kara's necklace completely safe. For 3 weeks, he'd been protecting it carefully, waiting for me to discover James's betrayal, knowing this phone call would come eventually. Edward had kept something I'd forgotten about. I spent the rest of the night systematically reviewing every legal document I'd signed over the past 2 years, every bank account addition, every property deed modification, every investment account changes, every insurance policy update. The power of attorney forms were the key to everything. Hidden carefully in routine insurance paperwork, I'd given myself emergency authority to freeze accounts, transfer assets, and make unilateral financial decisions if James proved incapable of responsible asset management. The debt acknowledgement forms were even more powerful legally. James had signed documents acknowledging that joint account access was conditional on responsible behavior. That shared ownership came with serious fiduciary responsibilities. That violation of family trust agreements voided all financial benefits immediately. I'd learned these protective strategies from 40 years of accounting work with wealthy families. How to protect accumulated assets from irresponsible children and grandchildren. How to maintain legal control while appearing generous and trusting. How to prepare for worst-case scenarios without seeming suspicious or controlling. Kara had been right about absolutely everything. James wasn't ready for real responsibility or commitment. He'd never learned to value family legacy over immediate gratification. He'd never developed character strong enough to resist temptation and social pressure. The legal framework was already in place perfectly. I just needed the courage to use it decisively. The power of attorney forms I'd forgotten about. Edward's shop opened at 9 o'clock sharp. I was waiting in the parking lot at 8:30, drinking coffee and watching early morning traffic. He unlocked the front door and gestured me inside quickly. Behind the counter, in a small velvet box, was Kara's necklace, exactly as beautiful as the day I'd bought it, exactly as precious as every anniversary she'd worn it proudly. "How did you know for certain?" I asked. "The engraving," Edward said simply. "Kara E. Williams, 1986. I'd done that engraving myself personally. I remember every piece that passes through here, but that one was especially special." I picked up the necklace carefully. The sapphire caught the morning light exactly the way it used to catch Kara's eyes during candlelit dinners. The gold chain was still warm from Edward's safe. "What did you tell James about the sale?" "That I'd contact him when I found a serious buyer. That these vintage pieces take considerable time to sell properly for full value." James was still waiting patiently for his vacation money, still planning his expensive Hawaii honeymoon, still bragging about his clever solution to funding problems. Edward had been waiting for this call. "I need to teach James about real consequences," I told Edward firmly. "Permanent consequences, life-changing consequences." Edward nodded seriously. "What are you thinking specifically?" "James has been using our joint accounts like his personal bank account, taking money without permission or discussion, making charges without consulting me, treating my 40 years of retirement savings like his inheritance advance." I showed Edward the credit card statements carefully, the unauthorized hotel bookings for romantic weekends, the expensive restaurant bills for dates, the designer clothing purchases for Brittany's wardrobe expansion. "This stops today permanently." Edward studied the paperwork meticulously. "You have power of attorney authority over these accounts?" "Complete financial authority if I can demonstrate irresponsible management of shared assets." And this necklace theft qualifies as irresponsible management? Along with everything else documented here, absolutely yes. Edward smiled grimly with satisfaction. What do you need from me specifically? Keep the necklace completely safe. When James calls asking about his money, tell him the sale fell through unexpectedly. Tell him the buyer changed their mind. Tell him these vintage transactions take considerable time. How much time exactly? However long it takes for him to learn genuine respect for family. Edward locked the necklace back in his personal safe. Marcus, there's something else you should know. James specifically asked me to keep this transaction completely quiet. He said, "Don't mention this to my father." But the real surprise was coming. Monday morning, I drove to First National Bank determinedly. Same branch where I'd opened my first checking account in 1978. Same manager, Patricia Morse, who'd handled Kara's and my finances for 25 years through every major life event. "Patricia, I need to implement the emergency asset protection protocols we discussed last year." She pulled my comprehensive file immediately. "The power of attorney situation with James?" "Yes. I have extensive documentation of unauthorized account usage by the secondary account holder." Patricia reviewed the credit card statements methodically. The joint account withdrawals James had made without permission. The investment account transfers he'd authorized independently. "This is substantial financial mismanagement, Marcus. Are you absolutely sure you want to proceed with full protection?" "I'm protecting family assets from continued irresponsible management and theft." Patricia printed official forms quickly. Account freeze authorizations, overdraft protection removals, credit line cancellations. In 20 minutes, James would lose access to every financial resource I'd shared with him generously. "The house ownership situation is more legally complicated," Patricia explained carefully. "Joint ownership means he has legitimate legal rights. What if I can prove the joint ownership was obtained through misrepresentation and false promises?" I showed her the debt acknowledgement forms James had signed, the fiduciary responsibility agreements, the family trust violation clauses. "These documents are absolutely ironclad," Patricia said admiringly. "Your lawyer knew exactly what he was doing." Those insurance forms James signed were actually promissory notes. By Tuesday afternoon, James's entire financial world was collapsing systematically. His credit cards stopped working during lunch at an expensive restaurant. His debit card was declined at the gas station while filling up for work. The Hawaii resort called requesting alternate payment information for their vacation deposit. James called me panicked and confused. "Dad, something's seriously wrong with all the bank accounts." "Really? What kind of problem are you experiencing?" "Everything's frozen completely. My cards don't work anywhere. The automatic payments all bounced. They're saying I don't have account access anymore." I let him explain the entire crisis in detail. Let him panic about the Hawaii trip cancellation. Let him worry about explaining the situation to Brittany's family. Let him feel genuinely desperate for the first time in his adult life. "That sounds very serious," I said calmly. "Have you done anything recently that might trigger fraud protection systems?" "No, I don't think so. The only unusual thing was selling Mom's old necklace, but that's my money to use however I want." His money. Mom's old necklace. However I want. "James, we should probably meet and review your account activity together comprehensively." "Yes. Could we do that today? Brittany's absolutely freaking out about the vacation." "Of course. Let's meet at my lawyer's office. Tom Peterson can help us sort this out properly." But the real surprise was in my new will. Word travels incredibly fast in small communities. By Wednesday morning, everyone knew about James selling his mother's wedding necklace. Everyone knew about the Hawaii vacation plans. Everyone knew about his sudden financial troubles and family conflicts. Kara's sister Carol called first thing. "Marcus, is it true about the necklace situation?" Then my brother Paul. "What's this I hear about James and some jewelry problems?" Then the neighbors, the church congregation members, Kara's book club ladies, the community center volunteers, everyone who remembered Kara fondly, everyone who'd loved her, everyone who understood what family loyalty meant. "I can't believe James would do such a thing," they said unanimously. "Kara must be rolling in her grave," they said. "That boy never appreciated what he had," they said. Brittany's family heard the complete story too. Her mother called my house directly on Wednesday evening. "Mr. Williams, I hope you know we had absolutely no idea about the necklace situation." "Of course not, Mrs. Patterson." Brittany is completely mortified. We raised her better than this behavior. I'm sure you did your best. If there's anything we can do to help resolve this situation. Thank you for your genuine concern. But there wasn't anything anyone could do now. James had made his choice. Now he had to live with the consequences. Small community means actions have wide, lasting consequences. James tried every manipulation tactic he'd learned in 32 years of life. Tears, anger, blame-shifting, guilt trips, promises to change completely, threats to cut contact permanently. Dad, you're ruining my entire life over an old piece of jewelry. Dad, Mom would want me to be happy and move forward. Dad, this is so unfair. I'm your only son. Dad, Brittany's going to leave me if we can't afford this vacation. Maybe she should leave him. Maybe someone who'd pressure him to steal from his dead mother wasn't the right person for marriage anyway. James brought Brittany to our lawyer meeting. She spent 2 hours crying dramatically about their ruined honeymoon plans, about her embarrassment with friends and family, about the deposits they couldn't recover. This is so unfair to James, she sobbed theatrically. He was just trying to make me happy. By stealing from his dead mother, by betraying his family legacy, by violating every principle Kara had tried to teach him about respect and responsibility. Tom Peterson reviewed every document coldly and professionally. James, these debt acknowledgement forms clearly state that joint account access is conditional on responsible financial management. But I didn't know that. You signed them. I trusted Dad to explain everything. You had the opportunity to read before signing. That's when James made his biggest mistake yet. This is absolutely ridiculous, James shouted at Tom Peterson. Dad's clearly not thinking straight since Mom died. He's being manipulated by his grief. He's not mentally competent to make these financial decisions. Complete silence in Tom Peterson's office. Even Brittany looked shocked by his outburst. Are you suggesting your father lacks mental capacity? Tom asked carefully. I'm saying he's not acting rationally anymore. Normal people don't destroy their children's lives over old jewelry. Tom opened another thick file. Marcus, would you like to respond to that suggestion? I'd been waiting for this exact moment, hoping James would give me legal justification for complete severance. Tom, please show James the competency evaluation I completed last month. Tom handed James a comprehensive mental health assessment, conducted by Dr. Richard Hayes, the county's leading psychiatrist. Perfect cognitive function, no signs of depression or diminished capacity, completely sound judgment and decision-making ability. I also have character references from my doctor, my accountant, my bank manager, and 6 community leaders, I added. James stared at the paperwork with growing realization. You planned this whole thing. I prepared for the possibility that you might challenge my mental capacity. You've been setting me up. I've been protecting family assets from irresponsible management. James's threat to contest my mental capacity was his final mistake. Legal grounds for complete disinheritance. Marcus's grieving old man act was strategic preparation. Friday morning, I started packing methodically. 1 large suitcase, Kara's wedding photograph in the silver frame, her wedding ring that I still wore on a chain around my neck, the recovered necklace Edward had safely returned, 45 years of marriage reduced to items that would fit in a small shoebox. The apartment I'd secretly rented was 3 blocks from Edward's jewelry shop. Small but clean, affordable on my pension alone. Everything I needed, nothing I didn't. No mortgage payments, no maintenance responsibilities, no financial obligations to ungrateful children. I left the house exactly as Kara had kept it during her lifetime. Her china still in the kitchen cabinets, her furniture still arranged in the living room, her garden tools still organized in the garage. Everything James would need to maintain the property independently, along with the mortgage I'd never mentioned to him. The property taxes he'd never paid attention to. The utility bills I'd always handled silently. The homeowner's insurance premiums due next month. The landscaping service contracts. The appliance warranties requiring annual renewal. The house was worth $300,000 in the current market. The mortgage balance was $280,000. James could sell it immediately and walk away with $20,000 profit. Or he could keep it and learn about adult financial responsibility. I left detailed instructions on the kitchen counter. Contact information for every utility company. Payment schedules for every monthly bill. maintenance requirements for every major appliance, emergency repair service numbers. I packed one suitcase. My final walk through the house took exactly 20 minutes. Every room held 45 years of precious memories. Kara learning to cook in that kitchen during our first year of marriage. Kara reading mystery novels in that chair by the window. Kara planting flowers by that window every spring. But those memories weren't tied to the physical building. They lived permanently in my heart. In the photograph I carried with me, in the necklace Edward had saved, in the promise I'd finally honored completely. I left my house keys on the kitchen table, along with a sealed envelope marked "For James" in Kara's handwriting style. Inside was a comprehensive list of every financial support I'd provided over the past 5 years: college loan co-signatures, credit card backup guarantees, car insurance payments, apartment deposit assistance, emergency loan funding, medical bill assistance. Total, $87,400. Also inside, a formal notice that all financial support was permanently discontinued. All co-signatures were being legally challenged. All backup guarantees were being removed. All emergency funding was being terminated immediately. James would learn to support himself and Brittany independently. The letter explained my reasoning clearly and factually. No anger, no bitterness, just natural consequences for deliberate choices. Actions have consequences. Family loyalty cannot be purchased with financial support. Respect cannot be taken for granted indefinitely. I signed it simply, "Your father, Marcus Williams." I left something else for him to discover. My new apartment felt peaceful immediately. No tension, no walking on eggshells around James and Brittany, no pretending their disrespect was acceptable behavior, no subsidizing their lifestyle choices with my retirement savings. Edward stopped by with coffee and Kara's favorite donuts from the bakery downtown. We sat at my small kitchen table, looking at her photograph together. "How do you feel?" he asked. Free, I said honestly. For the first time in 2 years, completely free. We talked about Kara for hours, about our memories of her infectious laugh, about how proud she would be of my decision to finally set boundaries, about how she'd always known this day would come eventually. She tried to warn me, I told Edward. Kara saw people clearly, he agreed. She saw potential and she saw character. She loved James, but she knew his weaknesses. My phone buzzed constantly with incoming calls, text messages from James, voicemails from Brittany, panicked calls from relatives who thought I was being too harsh and unforgiving. I turned the phone off completely. For 45 years, Kara and I had built something beautiful together. Family traditions, shared values, a legacy of love and commitment. James had chosen to sell that legacy for vacation money. Now he could build his own legacy, with his own money, through his own efforts, without my financial safety net enabling his poor choices. But James still had one more lesson to learn. Monday morning, reality hit James hard. The Hawaii resort demanded immediate payment or complete cancellation. His credit cards were maxed and completely unusable. His checking account was frozen pending resolution of the joint ownership dispute. Brittany's family withdrew their wedding support completely. "We can't be associated with this situation," her mother explained coldly. Brittany postponed the engagement announcement indefinitely, moved back with her parents temporarily, started questioning whether James was really marriage material after all. James called his workplace asking for salary advances, called distant relatives begging for emergency loans, called credit companies pleading for payment extensions and deadline modifications. Nobody could help him. Nobody wanted to enable his financial irresponsibility. The Hawaii vacation was canceled completely. The deposits were lost forever. The dream honeymoon became a source of shame and embarrassment. James finally understood what I'd been subsidizing silently all these years. Rent he couldn't afford independently on his salary. Car payments beyond his actual income level. Restaurant meals that cost more than he spent on groceries monthly. A lifestyle completely dependent on my financial backup. Without my support, James was just another 32-year-old with entry-level income and expensive tastes. "Dad, I can't survive without your help," he admitted during one desperate phone call. "Then you'll need to change your survival requirements," I replied calmly. "But how?" "The same way every other adult learns. Trial and error, natural consequences, personal responsibility." James finally understood Marcus was subsidizing everything. Brittany left him the second week after the financial collapse, packed her belongings while James was at work, left a note saying she needed time to think about their relationship future. What she really needed was a man who could support her expectations without stealing from dead relatives. James's co-workers started avoiding him noticeably. Word had spread quickly about the necklace situation, about the family money problems, about the vacation scandal. Office gossip travels fast in small companies. His boss called him in for a private conversation. "James, I'm concerned about your judgment recently." "This is personal family business," James protested. "Character isn't personal when it affects workplace trustworthiness." James realized his reputation damage extended far beyond family circles. Professional relationships, social connections, community standing. Everything was contaminated by his decision to sell Kara's necklace. He tried apologizing to everyone individually, family members, neighbors, Kara's friends, church congregation members, community volunteers who remembered his mother fondly. But apologies don't resurrect lost respect. Sorry doesn't restore reputation. Good intentions don't erase character revelations. People were polite but distant. They'd seen who James really was underneath the grief excuses and financial pressure. They'd seen him choose money over family memory. They'd seen him blame everyone except himself for the consequences. Kara's book club members stopped inviting him to memorial events. The church stopped calling him for volunteer opportunities. Neighbors stopped offering help with lawn maintenance. He still didn't understand the most important lesson. James found my letter 3 weeks later, hidden under a stack of utility bills in the kitchen drawer, sealed envelope marked, "Read when you're ready to understand." Inside was everything. Complete documentation of his financial dependence, detailed records of every manipulation attempt, clear evidence of his escalating disrespect toward Kara's memory, but most importantly, my final explanation. "James, I loved you enough to enable your poor choices for 2 years. I loved you enough to ignore your disrespect for your mother's memory. I loved you enough to pretend your selfishness was just grief. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's enablement. Kara knew this. She tried to warn me. She saw your character weaknesses before I admitted they existed. She predicted this betrayal before you made it. Your decision to sell her necklace wasn't about money. It was about values. It was about respect. It was about choosing immediate gratification over family legacy. I've chosen Kara's memory over your financial convenience. I've chosen her values over your emotional manipulation. I've chosen her legacy over your threats. You can earn back my trust through changed behavior, not through apologies, not through promises. Through sustained evidence that you've learned to value family over money. The choice is yours. Signed, Marcus Williams, Kara's husband. Then James found the letter I'd left. James called me after reading the letter. His voice was different, quieter. No anger, no demands. No manipulation attempts. "Dad, I understand now." "What do you understand?" "I understand what I took from you, what I took from Mom's memory, what I threw away for $3,000. Long pause. "I understand that you didn't punish me. I punished myself." For the first time in 2 years, James sounded like the son Kara had raised, the boy who used to help with her garden, who used to call just to check on us, who used to care about family traditions. "James, understanding is the beginning. Changed behavior is the proof." "How do I prove I've changed?" "You don't prove it to me. You prove it to yourself, by making different choices, by respecting family legacy, by earning what you want instead of taking what you think you deserve. Can I see you sometime? When you're ready to visit Kara's grave with me. When you're ready to apologize to her properly. When you're ready to honor her memory instead of treating it like an inconvenience. I'll call you when I'm ready. I'll be here." Love without respect is not love at all. Actions have consequences that outlive apologies. 6 months later, Edward and I have coffee every morning. We talk about Kara, about friendship, about the difference between enabling and supporting, about the courage required to set boundaries with people you love. I keep Kara's necklace in a small safe Edward installed in my apartment. Every morning I place it next to her photograph while I drink my coffee. Every evening I put it away safely. The necklace represents everything Kara valued. Marriage commitment, family loyalty, lasting love. Values that can't be bought or sold. Principles that survive beyond death. James sold those values for vacation money, but those values still exist, in my heart, in my choices, in my refusal to let his betrayal define our family legacy. Kara would be proud of my decision to finally set boundaries. She would approve of protecting her memory from further disrespect. She would understand that love sometimes requires difficult choices. Community respect matters more than family comfort. Character matters more than financial convenience. Memory matters more than manipulation. I honored my promise to Kara. I protected her legacy. I taught our son about consequences. Some lessons cost everything, but some things are worth every penny of that price.